Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are taking on the absolute chaos of on-call monitoring using Grafana Alerting V2. Look, if you're an IT support engineer or an SRE, you already know exactly what I mean by chaos, right? Well, today is the day we finally transform that noisy, headache-inducing setup into a precision routing machine. Let's get into it. So, let's start with a shared nightmare. Have you ever been jolted awake at 3 a.m. by a blaring critical alert only to realize, wait, this is for a completely different team? Yeah, we've all been there. Your phone is literally buzzing off the nightstand, you scramble in the dark to open your laptop, and boom, the database issue paging you is actually owned by another product team. You were just stuck on some massive catch-all list. Talk about frustrating. And, this perfectly captures the core issue with alert fatigue. Catching every single metric spike or log anomaly, that sounds great in theory, but as the team over at OneUptime put it, when a single incident triggers hundreds of identical alerts, figuring out what actually needs your attention becomes nearly impossible. Blasting everyone with noise doesn't help. It just leads straight to burnout. Responders start tuning things out, and that's exactly when real, customer-impacting incidents slip through the cracks. So we are fundamentally shifting how we handle this whole process. We're moving away from that legacy before picture. Those massive catch-all alert rules that just indiscriminately page the entire department at once. Instead, we're aiming for the after. This is a modern, smart routing approach. By using metadata, we can totally eliminate those ping-ponging alerts and make absolutely sure that only the exact right team gets the page. Here's a quick look at our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll cover the alert fatigue problem, then creating smart alert rules, setting up contact points, building the routing tree, and we'll wrap up with a real scenario focusing on smart routing. All right, part 1, the alert fatigue problem. Look, alert fatigue isn't just a minor annoyance. It's a massive, systemic risk to your reliability. Just think about this number, 90%. By treating alerting as code and utilizing pre-deployment validation, leading organizations like Airbnb, for example, have managed to reduce their alert noise by up to 90%. 90%. They stopped treating their production environment like a testing ground for alerts. By introducing fast feedback loops, engineers could actually see how an alert would behave before it went live. That means they only got meaningful, actionable signals. And that's exactly the level of precision we want to achieve. Moving right along to part 2, creating smart alert roles. Now, what's really cool about Grafana's alerting architecture is how it attacks the problem right at the source. Unlike older setups that were tied to just a single backend data source, we're focusing on the Grafana managed alert rule. And these things are incredibly powerful. Because they're evaluated by the Grafana server itself, a single rule can span multiple data sources. So you can literally combine infrastructure metrics from Prometheus with high cardinality logs from Loki, and even throw in relational business data from SQL. The result? Context-rich alerts that actually tell you what's going on. To make these rules work their magic, every Grafana-managed rule needs 5 critical components. Let's break them down. First, the query. This is your raw data retrieval. Think PromQL or LogQL. Second, the expression. This is your transformation logic, where you calculate things like rates or ratios. Third, the condition. The actual threshold boundary that separates normal from we have a problem. Fourth, the evaluation interval. Basically, how often the rule runs. And finally, the for duration. Do not skip that last one. It's the amount of time a condition has to persist before it actually fires. It is an absolute lifesaver for filtering out those quick, transient spikes that cause so much unnecessary noise. The real key here is applying solid SRE best practices to your rules. First up, you have to prioritize symptom-based alerts. Look, your users really don't care if a pod restarted. They only care if the API is slow, right? Second, heavily use that for duration pending period we just talked about to mitigate those annoying flapping alerts. Next, escalate priority based on confidence. And please include clear runbook annotations. Every critical alert should have a link to a runbook and a dashboard. That way, the first responder knows exactly what to do without needing a PhD in that specific system. All right, part 3, setting up contact points. So we have our rules. Now let's see how they fit into the pipeline. This is where contact points come in. Think of them as the terminal nodes of your notification pipeline. Basically, before an alert can ever pop up on a human being's screen, it has to be mapped to one of these contact points. They're the ultimate destination for your integrations. And Grafana supports a massive variety of these destinations. You've got Slack or Microsoft Teams, which are fantastic for everyday collaboration and those non-paging notifications. Then, of course, you have PagerDuty for the high-priority wake me up at 3 a.m. emergencies. Need to trigger automated ticketing or remediation? Just use a webhook. Or you can just use email if you simply need an audit trail. You configure these integrations to handle the final physical delivery of the message. Which brings us to part 4, building the routing tree. Okay, so we have our rules and we have our contact points. Now we have to connect them. Grafana uses this really elegant hierarchical tree structure for routing. When an alert fires, it drops in right at the top, the default route policy. From there, the routing engine traverses downwards, cascading through the branches. It looks for a matching team-level policy. And if it finds one, it looks even deeper for highly specific service-level overrides. Essentially, the system is continuously hunting for the most specific match possible before it decides exactly where to send that alert. And the traffic cops making these routing decisions at every single branch, those are called label matchers. They read the metadata attached to your alert rules using 4 primary operators: equality, inequality, regex match, and regex non-match. This setup ensures that an alert only proceeds down a branch if its metadata perfectly aligns with the policy rules. So if a label literally says team equals billing, the matcher grabs it and ensures it routes directly to the billing team's specific contact point. And finally, part 5, real scenario, smart routing. Let's put this into practice. If you are configuring this live in a demo environment, like play.grafana.org, for example, here is the exact scenario you'd want to test. Imagine we have 2 very different alerts firing at once. One is a CPU spike on a production server, tagged with the label team equals infrastructure. The other is a payment API error, tagged with team equals fintech. Now, instead of one massive confusing alert spamming a general channel, our routing tree dynamically reads those labels. It seamlessly routes that CPU spike straight to the infrastructure team's Slack channel so they can investigate. Meanwhile, it instantly triggers a PagerDuty alert specifically for the fintech team to jump on that critical API failure. Boom. No manual triage required. And this scenario brilliantly illustrates another super powerful feature: overrides. See, child policies in the routing tree inherit the settings from their parents, but they don't actually have to keep them. Let's say that payment API error also has a label that says severity equals critical. Well, we can configure that specific child policy to override the default grouping delay. What does that mean? It means during a critical payment outage, we completely bypass the default wait times and escalate the page without a single second of hesitation. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a challenge. Take a hard look at your own Grafana setup this week. Think about the alerts that woke you or your team up recently. Are they truly actionable signals that are actively protecting your systems? Or are they just noise that's slowly but surely burning out your engineers? By utilizing Grafana-managed rules, smart label matchers, and a well-structured routing tree, I'd argue it is absolutely time to transform your noisy alerts into a precision routing machine. Thanks for watching.